I bet that without even knowing you, I can guess exactly what your answer is going to be when you're asked this question. How are you doing? I bet the answer that you give to that question is, I'm doing fine, just fine. Everything's going along just fine. Was I right? See, here's the thing. That's the pretty standard answer that most of us give when a friend or an acquaintance or someone asks us how we're doing, how are things going, how are things rolling along. Generally, we just tell them things are doing fine. It tends to be the answer we give whether it's true or not. And while there are several reasons why this is the standard answer that we give, one of the biggest reasons is that we don't want to admit to ourselves or to anyone else that our life is anything other than fine. Doing so, especially admitting that to ourselves, would mean admitting that things are not fine and then doing some real soul searching and having to do something about it. Most of us don't really want to do that because doing so requires that we really get real and get honest with ourselves and assess where we truly are in life. However, that's what we're going to talk about today. Taking a hard look at our life, getting real, assessing where we are so that we can then make a plan to change it and get where we want to be. Hi, if we haven't met before, I'm Shelley from Taming Frenzy. When you start to plan a trip, probably one of the first things you do is you go to Google and you type in your destination, but then what does Google always ask? It always asks, what is your starting point? In order for Google to help chart a path from here to there, it needs to know, where are you right now? And this makes sense if we think about it. After all, we've got to get out of our house or out of our driveway. Google's going to want to know what streets we need to turn on, if we need to get on a freeway. And while you may not know the final destination in your personal journey yet, it's important to have a very clear understanding of where you currently are right now. Because knowing where you currently are truly is your first step. Basically, the first step to charting a new course is to take stock of your life and do a life evaluation. Taking stock of where you are will help you notice those discrepancies between where you currently are in some area of your life and where you really want to be. Once you know what the discrepancies are and they're glaring at you, then you can start making a plan to remedy those discrepancies and move your life in a direction that makes you happy. Now, I came up with an acronym quite a few years ago after a lot of reading in the self-help area. And the acronym is this, it's PRIME, and each of the letters of the word PRIME stands for something different, and it's my way of synthesizing all of this information into something that I could easily remember and that I could easily use and apply to assess my life and also to help me set goals. PRIME stands for all the different life areas. P stands for the physical. R is for relationships. I is for your inner self or your intellectual self. M is for money. And E is for escape. And we're going to take a look at each of those areas in a little more depth here. I would encourage you to, after you listen to this, maybe go back and listen a second time, or even go ahead now and grab a pencil and paper and write down these particular letters, P or I, M, E, and then just kind of rank yourself on each one on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being things are awesome, and 1 being things are not awesome at all, and 3 in the middle being kind of, they're okay. So let's get started. First off, let's evaluate how we're doing physically. Our health and all is the basis of everything else we do. Trust me, I know it's an area that I ignored for way too long. And actually, when I think about the physical aspect, I think of not only health, but I also think of appearance. And that is not in a vain way. It's not meant to be vain or to be shallow. But let's face it, especially as women, how we look determines or affects how we feel about ourselves. Now, in terms of general health, ask yourself some questions like these. How am I feeling? Am I getting enough sleep? Ask yourself if you're experiencing any strange symptoms that maybe are new or different, that maybe you need to talk to a doctor about. Anything painful happening that's new? Are there some doctor's appointments or general tests that you've been putting off that it's time for you to see about and make? Do you suffer from any chronic health condition? If so, how are you managing it? How are you doing? Are you following your doctor's instructions? When you have follow-up visits with your doctor, is your doctor pleased with your progress? Are things holding steady? Are they improving? Are you getting enough exercise? Are you moving your body enough? And how's your nutrition? So I would take a look on my piece of paper. I would look at each of those questions, and again, I would give them a score. I might be doing great in terms of nutrition, but I might not be doing so good in terms of sleep. That may be something I'm having a lot of problems with. Or I may, if I'm being honest with myself, admit that, yeah, there's some tests that I need at my age that I've been putting off just because I don't want to do them, and maybe it's time to go ahead and see about those things. But doing this and asking yourself those questions will allow you to kind of zone in on what it is that you've been avoiding and what you need to stop avoiding and pay some attention to. Now, as for the appearance aspect of this, I tend to look at how do you feel about the way you're looking and how is your wardrobe doing, and I'll explain why. And this is not just a vanity thing. It is more about the fact that how we look and feel reflects how we're taking care of ourselves, and it often impacts our mental attitude and how we feel about ourselves and how we're presenting ourselves to the world. It's also an indicator of how well we are taking care of ourselves. However, if some of it's for vanity, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of that as well, if it makes you feel better about yourself. The other thing to remember is that often our appearance gives us some pretty good clues into how our overall health is going. So, when you're looking at the appearance area, I would encourage you to think about things like, are you taking care of your skin? Do you have a regimen that's age appropriate? Are you consistent? Are you doing things to take care of your skin? Do you have any strange things that have come up on your skin that may be an indicator for concern that you need to have a doctor take a look at, that might be an indicator of an underlying health condition? Are you happy with the state of your hair? Do you like the cut? Do you like the color? Maybe it's time for a new haircut or for a new hair color. Maybe it's just time for an overall new do. Do your clothes fit and flatter? Do you feel good wearing them? Are you able to easily pull together an outfit that is appropriate for whatever event or occasion you're going to be attending? Are you taking care of your basic hygiene? If you wear glasses, is your prescription up to date? How do you like your frames? Do they fit? Do they flatter? Do they make you happy when you put them on? My blue ones make me pretty happy when I put them on. And again, give your score in each of these areas or make some notes so that you can know what you need to focus in on. Your glasses may be great, but you may notice that you've got a strange, something that's come up on your skin that maybe you need to have your doctor look at, or a dermatologist, to determine if there's an underlying condition that needs to be taken care of. So the R in Prime stands for relationships. In this area, I want you to look at each of the important types of relationships in your life. For example, you might look at your romantic partner or your significant other. How is your relationship going with that particular person? If you have children, are you happy with the quality of those relationships? What about how often you get to see them? Also, consider your extended family, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents if they're still living. How are those relationships? What about relationships with friends? Are those meaningful and satisfying? Would you like to have more friends? Are there some friendships that maybe you've outgrown that no longer fit? When looking at each of my own relationships, I ask myself questions like, am I happy with the quality of this relationship? Is it mutually satisfying? Is it built on mutual respect? Does everyone have their needs met? Does everyone feel understood and accepted? Am I happy with the quantity of time I get to spend with these people? I can honestly say with a couple of my kids, I don't get to see them as much as I like, but I thoroughly enjoy when we do get to be together. But yes, I would love to see them more. Ask yourself if this is someone you want to be able to spend more time with, and in that case, make a plan. Is this relationship mutually supportive? Do I feel like I am getting out of the relationship as much as I am putting in? Or is this a relationship that I need to work on being more present? Am I just kind of phoning it in and going through the motions? And if so, what do I need to do to fix that? Going through these or other questions that you come up with can help you determine if you've got some relationships that are either non-existent or that are lopsided, either for you or perhaps for the other person. For example, things may be great with my spouse, but maybe I've got a friend I've been ignoring. Maybe things are great with my kids, but I've been kind of ignoring extended family, and I need to put some effort in there. Now, when you're going through this particular set of relationships, you're going to have other relationships. You may have relationships within your community, within your church family, or other social type things that you want to ask these same types of questions so that you can determine how are those relationships doing. The point with all of these is that you focus all of these and that you tailor them to your specific situations. Now, the next area is a big one. I'm going to be honest. It's the biggest one of all, at least for me it is. And it includes a fair amount of things, to be honest. And that's the inner self or the intellectual area of your personal development and of your life. This area can include everything from your mental and emotional health. It can include your work life. It can include your business. It can include your spiritual development, your personal growth, your intellectual growth and development. Personally, this is the area that I use to evaluate my business and career goals as well, because all of that I feel like is coming from either in here or it's coming from in here, but it is something that is coming from inside of me personally. So for example, if you're an online business owner, if you write books, if you're a digital product creator or a course creator, then this is the area that you're going to examine and come up with a plan for any of those areas that need some work, that need some tweaking. Ask yourself, how are things going? Am I satisfied with that? If you're an artist of some kind, whether it's writing books or whether you sculpt or paint or do needlework, any kind of artwork, this is also a good place to put those interests because they come from within. Might ask yourself things like, have I created anything new? When was the last time that I did create something new? Has my muse gone missing in action? Are there any new mediums of artistic expression that you would like to explore and to maybe add to your repertoire? Are you regularly making time to work on your art so that you can have that creative expression be coming out in your life? You also may want to examine areas like your emotional resilience, your emotional development, your spiritual and your personal development. This one is really the biggest area for me because, again, anything that comes out of my brain, my heart, my soul, my creativity, this is where I look at it, to examine it, to critically evaluate where I am, to determine whether I'm happy with the current state or whether there are some things I need to improve, and then to make a plan. So for me, this area, this is the biggie for me. And the thing here with all of these areas, it's okay to have one area that has more things that are important to you than another. That's okay. The whole point with this model that I've come up with, again, after lots of reading and a lot of synthesizing, the whole purpose is to help you come up with a way to evaluate, examine, plan, and move forward. Now, the fourth area, M, stands for money. Of course, I hear it called, finances and all those other things, but I like the fact that M fit in there and it covers everything. So this is where I ask myself, and you would ask yourself questions like, how are my finances? Are you satisfied with your monthly budget? And is it something that you were able to make work? Are you happy with your standard of living? Are you satisfied with how your finances have you set up for future expenses and future events like retirement, health needs? Are you satisfied with the way you've got it set up to meet those unexpected things that always come up? Sometimes I think they really shouldn't be unexpected because we all know the car's going to need new tires and, things are going to happen around the house that need fixing, but those still tend to fall into those surprise. It needs to be done right now. Do you need to cut some expenses, or do you need to find a way to increase income, either by looking at a different job or creating a side hustle of something? Do you need to sit down with a spouse, or perhaps you and your spouse sit down with a financial planner to discuss your finances and to look at what you need to do to not only meet your needs now, but also to be meeting needs in the future? And are you planning, again, for those irregular expenses that do come around all the time? Christmas, birthdays, car insurance, house taxes, all of those kinds of things that we know are coming, that we need to be able to prepare when the big bill comes in once or twice a year. Now, the money area is also the area that I use to evaluate things in my home. And the reason I do that is this. Our home is generally the biggest expense that we ever deal with in our life. And so while a lot of the other things I've read will have home as a separate category, for me it made sense to put it under money. And the reason it made sense to put it under money is because when we take a look at our home, anything that we need to do or want to do, for example, any kinds of maintenance, anything that we want to do to update it cosmetically, it's going to cost money. Now, when you're evaluating things with your house and home, I would encourage you to ask yourself questions like this. Do I like where I live? Do I like the town or city I live in? Do I like my current actual home? Does our current home suit our needs? What about future needs? Do we need to start thinking about downsizing as we get older and as our kids leave home in order to have less space to maintain and to take care of and to keep up economically? Does my home's current decor fit my current taste? Do I look around and feel happy? Does it reflect me? Is my house clean and tidy enough to suit me, but also to suit the other people that live with me? And I'm going to give an example, and if it ticks some people off, I guess it's okay, change channel. But when we're thinking about organized and clean and tidy, I'm going to be honest, unless you live alone, it's not just about you. The other people who live with you, their wants, needs, and desires and preferences also count. For example, if you have kids who live at home who are embarrassed to invite friends over because the house always looks like a disaster area, that's something that needs to be considered. You may be perfectly content with piles everywhere and just a little pathway through them. But if the people who live with you are not, then that's a conversation that needs to be had. Another question to ask yourself, are you able to maintain your home's interior and exterior? Do you need some help, either outside? Do you need help inside? Are there some projects that you want or need to get done? Which ones are the most important, the most critical to be done as soon as possible? How do you develop a plan to pay for those? What about for those projects that are not critical and urgent and need to be done right now, but for example, perhaps updating your home's interior to suit your current decorating taste? When do you want to do those? Try and develop a timeline and a plan for how you're going to pay for that. Sometimes taking a cold, hard look at your house reveals some really little things, but that can make a difference in the way your house feels and the way it functions. For example, if every time you go to the kitchen and you open that cabinet door to get out the spices and you can't find what you're looking for, then a small project like organizing the spices may be something that doesn't take any or much money other than maybe buying a few organizers, but it can be something that can be done in a short period of time that makes your life function better every time you go to the kitchen to cook a meal. Sometimes, though, you'll find that there's something more serious that's going to take a little more time and effort to make something functional. For example, if you're getting older and it's hard to keep up with the task and the maintenance in the big family home, it may be time to start having that conversation and to start looking at and planning for moving to a smaller home and downsizing some of your possessions so that there is less to organize, less to clean, and less to take care of. Now, the last area of my prime model is escape. And this is one that I sometimes see and a lot of times don't, to be real honest. But the escape area is taking time for you. It's your downtime. It's rest, relaxation, and fun. I have found that these are areas that women frequently tend to really skimp on or not do until they are just feeling so overwhelmed that a little self-care is truly critical and urgent. Often we are so busy doing for and taking care of everybody else in the house and everyone in the family that we literally fall to the last place on our list if we get on the list at all. But it's important to make sure that you're taking time for rest, relaxation, daily downtime, and fun excursions. Fun's important. Taking time to escape the stresses of daily life helps give us balance, and it helps to equip us to deal with all those crazy things that happen. Let's be honest, you can't pour water from an empty cup. And when you've depleted all of your energy reserves and are totally drained, you cannot do for other people, at least not very well. Besides that, you deserve consideration. No one can continue to operate on an empty tank, And we don't expect our cars to keep running after the tank is empty and has no gas, but we tend to expect ourselves to keep doing just that, and that needs to stop. We are no different. Well, we are different, but the point is we all have to have a full tank, or at least a tank that has fuel reserves in it to run, to operate efficiently, and to get us where we need to go. And in our case, do for other people. Our own tank is not really that different from the one in our car, except, of course, with the way we refuel it. Now, when evaluating this area, ask yourself questions like these. Am I regularly taking time to engage in activities that I enjoy, that fill me up, that engage me, that make me happy? When was the last time I did something just for fun, not because I had to? Do I make time for activities that relax and rejuvenate me? Do I have a hobby? Or maybe I need one? Am I incorporating small things into daily life that make me happy, that make me smile? Now, here's a silly example that you may think is silly, but it is something that works for me. I love and adore fragrance. If I lived alone, I would be burning candles all over the house, probably all the time. However, I've got a hubby who is very sensitive to fragrance, and they literally stop him up and give him breathing issues. Since I want to keep him alive and breathing, I can't burn all those candles the way I would like to. He's more important to me than the candles and fragrance are. However, something little I can do that works is I can keep a nice flavored hand soap at the kitchen sink. And every time I'm going to prepare a meal and to wash my hands, I squirt that liquid hand soap in and I smell of it and it smells good. And for a minute I'm happy. I smile. Same thing with shower gels and things. I can use those. They smell good. They make me feel happy. And they don't bother his breathing issues. And yes, these are little things, but it's a way to incorporate some small things into daily life that's just pure bliss. The reason I encourage you to do all of these things and to go through this assessment for yourself, and the reason I started using it for myself, is knowing where you are in life can help you figure out what it is that you want. This is something that I go through in my own life pretty regularly, to be real honest, is to look at all the different prime areas and determine, am I happy with where I am? Are there things I need to change? What do I need to change? And how do I make them? And then I use these to set my goals. And next month's playlist is going to be all about goals. And so I will address this topic more. Now, as you go through the Prime Life Assessment, you'll probably notice that some areas are rocking along great. You're perfectly content. Things are good. And other areas, maybe not so much. You may also find that there are some areas that you've been totally ignoring that really need to be pulled in to make things a little more balanced. Using this is a good way to start down a road of personal growth and development, because it gives you a way to start making changes, even a little bit at a time, to start moving your life in a direction that's better. And over time, you'll begin to see growth in all of the different areas that you work on. And then you can use that further growth to make further plans as you move forward. Now, if you're interested in more information about Prime Life Assessment, I would encourage you to hop over to my website. Go to tamingfrenzy.com / I always mess that up, but tamingfrenzy.com / Prime Life Interest List, and just sign up to get on a waiting list for some things that I'm in the process of developing. I hope that you'll watch the other videos in this series on setting a course for your life. The next playlist to come is all about goals and how to set them realistically, how to achieve them, why you may be missing the mark a lot of times and being frustrated with yourself. But until next time, let's all tame some frenzy.